Hey guys, y'all don't forget about our merch drop. We got some of our clothing right here on the table. We have the Searching for the Lost graphic tee, activewear tee, No Rest for the Wicked, and we also got our tank top. Here we go. It's this, it's a cotton spandex blend. Very simple design with TV in the front, custom patch right there on the front as well. And man, they're very comfortable, lightweight. It's really good for running and stuff if you want to wear a tank top where it's not too heavy and it's not too thick. But guys, we just want to tell y'all thank y'all for all the support and ordering stuff, reaching out. Man, y'all really helping us a lot, especially like it's helping us move into some other things that we're doing that we're excited to do, and it's fun and all that. So guys, thank y'all. Oh yeah, so we're doing a little deal right now. We're about to start it, is where we're gonna get y'all to send a picture of y'all wearing y'all's TBM gear, posting it. Then we're gonna put y'all in a drawing for a giveaway. And giveaways gonna be hats and stuff like that, and there's some other stuff that I'm working on to also give away. But yeah, just all you gotta do is post, tag us in it, and we're writing y'all down on a little notepad that we're gonna get that done. Thank y'all, keep supporting us, keep buying, and we appreciate everything. Hey guys, welcome back to TBN Podcast. I'm your host, Gunnar Michelli. So today we have Mr. George Gubler. But so he is a Green Beret. He spent 10 years active duty with 7th Group. And now he is with 19th Group, been there for 7.5 years, am I correct?
Yep, 7.5.
So how you liking it?
It's good, man. It's very enjoyable. Not only do I get to do the military side of the house, but I can also have a civilian life and spend more time with my family. The SF side, we tend to be gone a lot.
Yeah.
So being able to spend time with my family and still be able to partake in that is really, really good. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a very good dynamic because, man, life's so short. You realize that, and you miss so much.
You do, and that's actually part of the reason I got out of active duty is I had missed so many Christmases and birthdays and stuff, and my kids' first steps, and it weighed pretty heavy on me because I'm a big family guy, and I decided, man, I need to change this a little bit and spend more time with them, focus a little bit more on them because I felt like I was neglecting them a little bit.
Yeah. It's just such a catch-22 because you can only put your heart into so much. And I mean, you can spread it into many pieces as you want, but you can't give everything 100%.
That's true.
And it's hard. And
you got to prioritize what you need. There's so many different facets of your life, and you got to prioritize it because if you neglect one, I mean, it could affect all the rest of them too.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's kind of like a little daisy chain because then your discipline gets messed up. If your discipline gets messed in one thing, it's going to bleed over. Or 100%. Like your motivation gets messed up in one place, it's going to bleed over. And
absolutely. It's
detrimental. That's why you got to, surround yourself with a motivating family and just good people and keep you accountable. That's what I do. My brothers are that for me. So
yeah, absolutely.
So today we're going to talk about some various topics. We're going to talk about his business. We're going to talk about Combat Warriors. He's the president of in this, is it whole East Texas chapter?
Yep, the East Texas chapter.
Okay.
Yep.
And talk about his childhood, adolescent years, and his time in the military. So as right now, we're in his gun shop. He just got built in February, or when it was finished. And guys, it is crazy. The guns he has is crazy. And we're going to talk more about his business model in a little bit. But I've never seen nothing like it. And we're in East Texas, and there's a lot of gun shops around here, And I've been to a lot of them. And he's got some pretty crazy shit around here. Makes you just want to go out there and just go wreak havoc again. But so yeah, we'll get into it. So George, tell us a little about your childhood. Like, what did that look like? Yeah,
so I didn't have any immediate family in the military. Although my father did some stuff back in the 60s. He did try to become a Navy SEAL or a frogman, I guess is what they called them back then. Whatever it was at that particular time. And while he was doing that, it really wasn't his personality. Mm-hmm. And he ended up getting scooped up by one of the agencies, one of the 3-digit agencies there, and ended up going over to Cambodia, Laos, a few places like that, and doing some stuff for them. And that was a short-term thing. And then he ended up going back to Nevada and worked out just outside of Area 51. He was in Area 12 working for the Department of Energy out there. So he did that for a little while. My grandfather was Air Force 27 years. It was actually the Army Air Corps when he started, and then it turned into the Air Force. And I always wanted to join the military. Since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be in the military. My father was actually a marshal for a little while. He ended up retiring out of that as a marshal. So I always kind of had law enforcement, military, something that I wanted to do, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. Grew up in Reno, Nevada, and when I was getting ready to graduate, I really didn't know. I didn't have a direction of what I wanted to do. I was playing football, but I knew there was no career there for me.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up doing is I was going to join the Air Force, decided against it. I was going to join the Marines. I almost did it. My parents wouldn't sign for me because I was 17. And then I just kind of lost that dream for a little while, my oldest brother. Anyhow, him and I had this dream of playing on the same team together. And the team, by the time I got old enough to do that and get on the team, that team no longer existed. So he wasn't playing football anymore. He was just lifting weights, which was cool because I kind of got into that. Did a little bodybuilding when I was younger. Nothing exciting, just local stuff. And then I got the opportunity. He went down to Australia and played a year of football down there. And they call it gridiron down there, but it's your NCAA rules. NCAA rules. He played football and he came back and he says, "Hey, bro," he says, I really could use a linebacker down there. Do you know anybody? I'm like, "No, man, I really don't." And at that time I had a girlfriend from a 1 to 10. She was a 12, smoking hot, right? And I just bought a new car. I was 19 years old. I had a job. I was in college. And he says, "Man, no, I mean you. I want you to come down." I was like, "God, I don't know if I can do that, man." So I broke up with my girlfriend, voluntarily repoed my car, dropped out of college, hopped on an airplane the day before 9/11 happened and went to Australia.
Really?
Yep, at 20 years old. Ended up down there and emailed a buddy of mine. I was like, "Hey, man, how's it going back there?" He says, "Yeah, some dumbass crashed an airplane into the Twin Towers." And I'm thinking, a little Cessna or something. I didn't pay attention. And I woke up the next morning to all 9/11 on the news. So that was a huge time for me. I was like, wow, this is the first time I've been out of the country by myself, 20 years old. I flew to the other side of the world and then this happens. And hell, that could have been my plane, right? Because I flew at the same
for real
time.
Though. Yeah.
It was the same time, right? So that was pretty big. And then after I got done that, I played one season down there. It was pretty cool. And then I came back and went back, got a job, and I was actually driving truck for a living. Dating another really smoking hot girl. She was actually a go-go dancer and a showgirl, all the feather boas and stuff you can think about like in Vegas, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it was pretty cool, and life was going pretty good. And she asked me before I proposed to her, she asked me if, what would be my one regret in life if we got married and had 2.5 kids and the dog and the white picket fence, the American dream. And it took me about 2 days to answer. And I said, probably never joining the military. So I'll fast forward a little bit. She ended up going crazy, redhead. And when she went crazy and stuck a gun to her head, and she pulled the trigger. The good part is the magazine was loaded. There was nothing in the chamber. And she had never touched a firearm in her life up until that point. So she pulled the trigger. Hammer comes back, it snaps, and I went, wow, she has some serious cojones to do that.
Yeah, that's brave.
Yeah. So I grabbed the gun from her and realized my mistake of leaving that gun available to her at that time. Corrected that now. And I broke up with her at that point. I was like, we can't do this. That's way beyond what I need to be involved in. And I thought about that, and that was on a Thursday. And it's crazy. I remember that, right? I don't know what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I guarantee I remember these little things. So that was a Thursday. Well, I happened to have a crotch rocket, and I was riding around on Saturday, and I go whizzing by the Army recruiter. It was a Saturday, and doing well over the speed limit. Go whizzing by, and I thought about what we had talked about. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go see what they have to offer. And I walked in there, and my head was shaved. I was wearing a wife beater. I had pierced ears. Definitely nothing.
I would have never expected that.
Yeah,
never.
And I was a gym rat, so I was jacked at the time. And I walked in there, and the recruiter looks at me and says, what can I do for you? I said, well, I want to join the Army. He says, okay. He says, you know what you want to do? I said, man, I just want to kill bad guys. He says, well, I have a job for you. And he handed me an SF pamphlet. He says, we're going to become special forces. I'm like, well, sounds good to me. Mm-hmm. The ironic part of that is and I joined right there, right? The ironic part of that is when I was in the 7th grade, I went down to the Army Navy surplus and I had some dog tags stamped up. And these dog tags I had stamped up just had my name and it said Special Forces on it. I had no clue what Special Forces was. Until the day I joined the Army, I had no idea what a Green Beret was.
That's what I was about to ask you.
That was pretty ironic.
That's what I was just about to ask. Like, did you do any kind of like studying of like what you want to do in the military as far as like job wise? Like you didn't know any kind of difference between infantry. Like you hear that story all the time where people join and they don't know. I knew exactly what I wanted because I've been studying it since way beyond I remember. Yeah. And because I was always in the library looking at or our school library, I'd check out is the military books, like the Navy SEAL books, the Marine books, all that. And actually, I went to the Army recruiter first. I wanted to go in the 75th Ranger Ridge. Told me my eyesight wasn't good enough, and they put me at 13 Mike, which is HIMARS. And so I was like, I was about to go to basic training. I was like, I can't do it. Yeah. And so I took my contract out, whatever. And they said they were fighting for me to go get infantry or get that contract, whatever. And they were, I mean, it can't be that hard to get infantry with the Option 40 contract, But went to the Marines, told them, like, hey, guys, I'm not interested no more, and went to the Marines and got infantry that day.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I wanted the Army because you ever seen Band of Brothers? I tell the story all the time. So Bill Garnier, that's our cousin. Like my great-grandpa's cousin. Wow. And so that was kind of fascinated with the Army at that time. But that's wild how you just didn't know anything about Special Forces and just didn't know what that commitment was going to be.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so I actually joined right there. I took the ASVAB right there, and then I took a PT test, and 2 weeks later they were shipping me off to MEPS. But between that and being able to actually pass a PT test as a senior or as a 24-year-old, I guess, which most people at 24 were not able to do that at that time, I guess. And I guess it's even worse now. But between being able to do that and being able to do basic, right face, left face, about face, stuff like that, they put me in as a PFC, so an E3. I shipped off, went to MEPS and straight to basic training, and 17 and a half years later, here I am.
So whenever you did that initial 18 X-ray package, did you have to go by the 18 X-ray PT test and stuff, or was it still just basic Army?
So for when I was at the recruiter, it was just a Army PT test, your standard Army PT test. Once I got through basic training, then at the end of basic training, before we actually went to airborne school, they gave all the 18 X-rays a PT test for the SF standards, right, which is the 17 to 21-year-old category. And you had to score a 260 at the time, I believe. 240, I think is what it was. That was what you had to score at that time. That's wild.
Yeah. And so how was basic training? Was it what you expected?
Yeah, it was I really enjoyed it. I really did. Some people hated it, basic training. I kind of have that personality of the worse that it sucks, the happier I am, right? Because we're all in it together, right? You get that camaraderie, that brotherhood. We're all in it together. It's sucking, and the worse it is, the more I would just kind of laugh and of like, wow, this is awesome, This sucks. We're all in it together, though. It wasn't like just me. I wasn't isolated. No, we were all collectively in that same scenario.
Did you start eventually understanding what it meant to be a Green Beret?
Yeah. It took me a moment because I didn't know what it was. But after I went through basic, we went straight to airborne school, and then we shipped out to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and that's when we actually kind of understood what it was, because we went to SWCC, which is the Army. It's the Special Forces Training Unit, right? That trains you to become a Green Beret for the Q course, so this SF qualification course. So that's when I kind of understood what it was, and that we're not just a bunch of guys going out there kicking doors and shooting people in the face. That's not what SF does. Don't get me wrong, we do that, and we're very good at it. But that's not our primary job, right? Our primary job is we're teachers, and we're the best teachers in the world, right? So we go train, whether it's a rebel force or whether we're training another military force to fight or overthrow maybe another government, right? Whatever it might be. That's what we're doing is we're training these individuals. That's our whole mission set is unconventional warfare.
Did that matter to you, or was you still pretty excited for that job?
Oh, I was really excited about it. Yeah, I was like, man, I'm going to go see the countries, see all these different countries, and I'm not just going to be, like 0311, on the front line. I'm not just going to be that. I'm not just going to be infantry or whatever job. I'm going to be there 6 months before the front line ever gets there.
That's sick.
That was cool to me. To me, that was really enticing when you think about it. Like, we're going to be there for 6 months or 8 months before the front lines ever get to us. Living with the village, living with whatever unit we're actually with, or maybe not a unit, maybe just a force that we're with. And then the front line can come up to us, or we might be there by ourselves and there'll never be a front line coming to us, right? So it's pretty exciting to hear about and think about.
Yeah. The movie 12 Strong. Like I've heard big stories and talking to people about how they felt about it as far as, SF, but to me, like, it did display a pretty great picture of what y'all do.
It does, yeah.
Of what it means to be a Green Beret. Like the combat, obviously, but like it's not, raids and all that, all the time. It's like literally interdicting yourself in a cloud of fog and making something extraordinary happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually met Mark Noosh when I was up in Kansas at the E3 ranch. He came in and he introduced himself as Mark, and I was like, I know you from somewhere. I couldn't quite place it, and about 15 minutes later, the bell rang, and I was like, oh, geez, there it is. Mark Noosh, he had the Horse Soldier whiskey is what he had. And I was like, you're Mark Noosh, no joke. So we ended up chatting for a little while. He ended up giving me his personal cell number, and he ended up signing a bottle. I told him about Combat Warriors, which we can get into whenever you're ready. But I told him about Combat Warriors, which I'm the president of the East Texas chapter, like you said earlier. I mentioned it to him and told him what we were and who we are, and he grabbed on his bottles right there, and he signed it to Combat Warriors, Mark Noosh. And he gave it, and he says, here, man, he says, auction this off at your next fundraiser. And we did. And I think the bottle sold for like $2,800 or something.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was pretty big deal. Yeah, signed by Mark Noosh.
That's crazy.
In fact, actually, his communications sergeant, his junior echo, lives right down here in Henderson.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he lives right down here in Henderson.
I wonder if I can get him on a podcast.
Probably. So I don't recall his name off the top of my head right now, but I actually went into a liquor store during a buddy of mine's wedding. Went into this liquor store down in Arp, Texas. And I went into this, it's the only liquor store there, a little tiny town. And I looked at the bottles of Horse Soldier, and they were all signed. I was like, what the heck? All these bottles are signed by this guy. And I'm like, who is this? So I called Mark Noosh, and I was like, hey, I found all these bottles down here, and they're all signed by this guy. He's like, oh, yeah, that's my junior echo, man. He signs all the bottles. Anytime he goes into a liquor store, he signs all the bottles, and then he just leaves it up there. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool.
Was he there for that whole event, or?
I've never met him.
You never met him?
I've never met the guy. But I've been trying to get a hold of him to where I can bring him out to one of our Combat Warriors events, and maybe even have him talk about I have one of his bottles that is signed. I did buy one just for that reason. And I want to get him out to one of our events, and so that he can talk about that bottle before we auction it off, and he can be there as well, and kind of bring him into the loop. I think that'd be really awesome.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And so after, you went through basic training, airborne and stuff, and then you went to the Q course. What was that struggle like?
It wasn't what I thought it was. I thought it was going to be, I'm not going to say it was harder or easier. It was just different than what I had thought what it was going to be, right? So we got to Fort Bragg. We went to a pre-selection. SOPC is what they called it at the time. I don't know what it is nowadays. But we went to SOPC, and that was kind of cool. And then we kind of got into going to selection, right? Which selection we had 398 people, I think, that went into selection. It was one of the biggest classes. And this is in 2006, beginning in 2006. And they told us in basic training, there was 51 of us in our platoon in basic training. We were all 18 X-rays. And they told us only one of you, maybe one of you, will make it through selection. The reality is 6 of us out of that entire platoon made it through selection. The attrition rate was about 60% at that time, so about 60% of that class was not selected. But again, now keep in mind, after you get done with selection, that's not the end of it. You can fail at any time, right? And they'll just send you back to the needs of the Army. Or if you were a prior, let's say you were a prior, we had a guy that actually was a trumpet player in our class, which was interesting for the Army band. And when he failed out, he just went back to being a trumpet player back at the Army. But if you're an X-ray, you go needs of the Army as an infantryman, and they might send you to Alaska or Hawaii or wherever, Korea. So we went through, after we got selected, then you just put you straight into the Q course. And you go through the Q course with whatever language you selected, whatever MOS you selected, and whatever group you selected. And most people at that time, about 80% of those people at that time were getting what they wanted as far as MOS, language, and such. Now, there's a certain amount that didn't get that, and most of the time it was because it selects something like, I want 7th group and I want to speak Mandarin Chinese. Well, that doesn't make any sense because 7th group, their AO is South America, speaking Mandarin Chinese. So you're probably going to go, probably going to go to 7th with Spanish, or you might go to 1st group with Chinese, right? So they'll give you at least one of the two. And then MOS, most guys were getting what they wanted because they just needed a lot. There's a big push at that particular time to get. They're trying to mass produce special operators, which you can't do.
No,
but that's what they were trying to do.
And this is like the heat of the war too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what was that dynamic like? Was your instructors pretty combat heavy?
Some of them were, some of them weren't. Some of them had 2 or 3 tours in, 4 tours in. We had a guy that was actually from the Panama Grenada era.
Wow.
I don't recall which one he was in. He was in one of those 2.
Paul, I was in during all that.
Right.
He went there.
Yeah. Some of them were, some of them weren't. But we had, I would say, a pretty good amount of instructors that were several tours in. So, but the instruction was great. Of course, you always have 1 or 2 that you're not real crazy about. It might just be a personality difference. But for the most part, they were really good. One of my instructors actually ended up committing suicide right after our class, which was, that we all kind of went, really? Wow. The other instructor, his partner is actually still a good friend of mine, Jay. In fact, I just saw him in November. He came out to one of our Combat Warriors events. So
I'm so going to one. I'm not going to miss the next one.
I'm excited. You need to come out. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, anyhow, I'll fast forward. So I went through the Q course. I got exactly what I wanted. I wanted 18 Charlie. I wanted Spanish, and I wanted 7th group. And so I got all 3 of those. Went through the Q course. Graduated the Q course in February of 2008. And then I had my 30 days of leave before we had to report. And I got married at that time. So I was dating my wife throughout the Q course. I knew her for about a year, so only about half the Q course, I guess. And then went down to 7th group and reported there, and pretty cool.
And so how long was you there before y'all went on y'all's first combat deployment?
So as soon as I got there, I reported in April of 2008, and in September of 2008, I was in Iraq.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so where'd you go? Like, was you Fallujah?
No, so we went to Al-Qud, Iraq. So 7th group doesn't go to Iraq, with the exception of this one mission. It's called the BDOC mission. And basically, we were L&O for the El Salvadorians who were doing a humanitarian aid mission over there. So they were handing out Spider-Man backpacks and soccer balls and bags of rice and beans and all that stuff. And we were kind of like the L&O for them, being that they're Spanish speakers and they're in Iraq. And we're Spanish speakers, but we also speak English, of course. So we were kind of like the L&O for them. The cool part was it was a twofold thing for us. We weren't just there as the L&O, but we were also running operations. So
I figured there was something behind it.
yeah, yeah. So we'd go out to these. They'd have a mission. They're going to go hand out all these bags of rice and beans and all that stuff, and do this humanitarian aid. And while they were doing that, we were collecting intel. So we were pulling security for them essentially, and we were also collecting intel at that time. And then when we get back to base, we'd put all that intel together, and then we'd go do a hit that night. So it was pretty cool. So we'd run, I think it was 152 missions in 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of the times it was 2 missions in a day. And then we just took Sundays off. But and then, of course, we took all the major holidays off because think about if you got killed on Christmas. That'd be really crappy for your family, right? You know, we got Christmas, but, oh, yeah, this is also Dad's, when he passed away. So, yeah, we did take those days off. But other than that, yeah, we were just running missions back to back to back.
What was your first thought on combat?
What's that?
What was your first thought on combat? Your first firefight?
Oh, I wanted to go so bad. So Iraq, it was crazy. We went 6 months, no firefights.
Wow.
0 IEDs, 0 firefights. That was Iraq. It was great going. It was, we did everything we needed to. And again, 152 missions, I believe it was. Don't quote me on that number, in a 6-month period. But when we got all done, 0 firefights. It wasn't what I thought it was.
Wow.
I was thinking you'd go there, you'd be in a firefight every day, that kind of thing. That's not the case in our particular instance, shall I say. It wasn't until I went to Afghanistan. So we came back in March of 2009. And then in July of 2009, June of 2009, my son was born. And I was in Afghanistan in July. So we were only home for 3-4 months. And then we were back to war again. All right. So we went to Afghanistan, and that one, we got in plenty of firefights. Plenty of firefights, plenty of IEDs, all that kind of stuff.
So what was y'all's mission set there?
So that was right at the time when we were transitioning to VSO sites, your village stability operations. So we were going. When we first showed up, we were on a big base. We were in Tarankat in 2009 for my team. And from there, we were transitioning out to these smaller VSO sites. We actually had to make our own little base at the time. And so we'd go out to this area, set up our own base, and it was just us plus a few attachments. We had a mechanic and a cook and a few things like that, a couple of infantry guys to pull security for us while we were doing operations. And that was the whole mission at that time, was these village stability operations. So it was pretty interesting and definitely Green Beret, right? That's definitely special forces. Doing the village stability operations. Being on a big base really isn't what we do. It's that little thing that we do. Like I said, living with the village elders, living with the people and spending the money on, eating their food, we'd buy their food. We'd kind of plus up their economy a little bit in that little area, whatever that little town is. And then we could still run our operations as well.
And the Afghan people are so just different. Anything can be paid off. I mean, it don't matter what you do, what happens in their little village, who gets killed or whatever, money speaks.
Oh, it does.
And it's nuts.
It does.
But
and they know that Americans, what's our answer to everything? Throw money.
Yeah, throw money.
Yeah,
we've seen a lot of that right now. But it's living with the Afghans is different. I hated it. The Afghan army. Oh man. And the whole Man Love Thursday things, there's always conspiracy. That shit's true. True. And there's one of my boots, Beret. He's always funny. Blonde hair, blue eyes, baby face. They wanted to eat him alive.
Oh, yeah.
Eat him alive. And I should have made them pay me, and I probably would have let them have it. But but no, it's different. It's different. That whole country is just weird and stuff, and it's very dynamic because whenever we were there, so ISIS crossed over into into Afghanistan, and so the Taliban were fighting ISIS. It is a like Taliban, ISIS, Taliban, us. It was just a triangular thing, and and coming to find out that Green Berets were coming up with these guys who are like finding our guns and our same night vision capabilities, same thermal capabilities. What were they called? I think they called them like the Red Team is what they call themselves.
Okay.
And it was pretty weird. And also, they was doing the drones at that time. So they're flying drones, putting 40 mics on it, and dropping it on the base, and they're using it to call for fire onto our base, and it was getting pretty accurate.
Oh yeah.
And with doing that, it's just they took a lot of like all that stuff that was going on in Mosul and Iraq and translated it to Afghanistan, and even my platoon sergeant and they're all pretty combat heavy Marines, and it's just stuff that they would have never seen before. It was just a way different dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the time we showed up in Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever you want to call it, we'll just call it that Middle East during that time, the GWAT era. It's amazing how our TTPs changed and our equipment changed. As they learned how we were doing things, we had to change how we were doing things. Simple things like going from simple things like, we used to use IR lasers and IR headlights and stuff like that all the time. We were running under night vision. Simple trick, if you got a new iPhone or any of the new phones, really, if you just turn on your camera and use it to look, you can actually see IR lights and IR lasers with it, with a simple camera. Yeah. So it kind of defeated the purpose of us having that capability, right? Or using that capability. So we had to change the way we did things because of that. They didn't have necessarily night vision. I mean, they might have. We used to roll around with night vision all the time during night, and we'd run all of our IR stuff until one of our terps actually showed us the whole phone trick, and I was like, wow, we need to change what we're doing a little bit. Let's use it in a different way. Now, we're still using the equipment. We just use it in a different way. Right. Yeah,
and that's the crazy thing. Like, because like the SF guys, like they were literally finding like our same MVGs, our same everything. I mean, a lot of it was China stuff, but like it still had the same capabilities. And so it was eerie because we thought we're still superior and stuff, but like knowing that they had the same capabilities as us kind of debunks the whole like when you go to the Middle East, you think you're just going to find a bunch of like farmers and stuff, which essentially you probably are, but like there's intelligence behind it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and they pour a lot of money into it. In fact, some of it's our money.
Yep, true. Yes, very true.
Yeah, it's pretty wild for sure. And again, as time progressed, they would learn things, get new equipment. In fact, some of the equipment they were getting from us, right? We were providing it to the Afghan National Army or the Afghan National Police. Whatever Afghan local police, and some of those guys, I mean, they'd sell their equipment,
especially the police. Police were the most corrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd provide them, say, a bunch of our old M16s that we'd retired out because we transferred to an M4, for example, and then we'd find some of these Taliban fighters that after we got done with the firefight, we'd see their guns and pull up the serial numbers and realize where it came from, and it was one of ours that ended up at the Afghan local police. And they ended up selling it to whoever, their body armor, their night vision, whatever it was.
It's nuts. Yeah. And actually, like, what's crazy is now, like, after what happened last year, or was it 2021 or 2020, when we pulled out and, 2-1 got hit with the V-bid and killed all the Marines and stuff. And they got it all. Like, I don't know how to feel about it. I really don't think about it often,
Right. Well, it's crazy because a lot of people they think that we just left all this equipment, like we just pulled out and left it all there. That's really not what happened.
Yeah.
We were taking our older equipment and some new equipment as well not necessarily all just our retired out stuff. And we were actually providing it to the Afghan National Army so that they can protect themselves and protect their country and fight for themselves without us having to fight for them.
Yeah.
And we were giving it to the Afghan local police and other organizations as well. So all that equipment that we gave to them was so that they could fight and sustain their government. And so when we left, we did leave all that equipment. And a lot of it, part of it is a financial thing too, right? The money it takes to ship a Humvee back to the United States is more than the Humvee was worth. So financially, it made sense to just leave it there, give it to the Afghans, and let them do their thing. Unfortunately, like we were talking about, they'd either sell it to the bad guys or the bad guys would come, wipe out their whole little section and take all their equipment, so they don't end up going to the bad guys anyhow.
One thing I did find weird, like it's just not the Afghan army and the Afghan police. There were so many different little organizations fighting the Taliban and stuff, like just local militias and stuff. And that's pretty neat and pretty interesting and stuff. So that's something I learned.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot of that going on for sure.
So how many deployments did you do in Afghan?
So I did 3 to Afghanistan, 1 to Iraq, and then I actually just got back from it's considered a combat zone. I didn't really consider it combat, but Lebanon is also considered a combat zone. So total of 5 combat tours, 3 in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, were the real combat actually.
So, when you go back and reflect your time in the Green Berets and stuff, do you feel like it's changed who you were? As far as your mentality and everything like that, were you as disciplined kind of growing up and stuff, or kind of the Green Berets or the military in itself kind of shaped you?
It definitely changed me. In fact, I asked my dad that at one point. I said, "Hey, Dad, do you feel like the military has changed me?" He says, "Absolutely, 100%." I grew up in a very, very disciplined family. We didn't. If you fucked around, you found out real quick. Dad wasn't putting up with that shit. But so we grew up in a very structured, disciplined family. So I already had that going for me. But once I got to the military and it kind of changed my perspective on things, maybe it wasn't necessarily like my dad or my mom had explained it to me, or how my upbringing was. Yeah. I realized that there is actually a much broader thing out there. There's no little simple solution for everything. It's actually a really broad spectrum out there that you're going to have to look at and adjust to. Working with people from all over the country, living, guys coming in from Michigan and wherever they come from, instead of just where I grew up at, and all these different backgrounds of people, where they're plumbers, or they grew up as farmers, or they grew up as businessmen, or whatever they grew up as, and their families were into, and then they all came into this one organization, and I'm sure you understand the same with the Marines, right? So I kind of had to see that, and it was eye-opening, and it definitely changed how I look at things and what's acceptable and what's not. The only thing that really didn't change for me was my morals, I guess, really didn't change for me, because I already had that established, and I still keep them and maintain them to this day. I did become a little bit more, not necessarily religious, but more spiritual. Yeah. I definitely became more spiritual, because when you're put in situations that could be the end of your day, you tend to get a little bit closer or have more conversations with whoever you might call upstairs,
100%.
Whether you call God or whatever you want to call it, you're probably going to talk to somebody up there a little bit more often.
What do you feel like the greatest asset the Green Berets gave you?
Ooh, that's a good one. The greatest asset as far as
just like something that's helped you in life. Like it could be characteristic, or like just way you look at things, or just like a mentality.
I think the biggest thing is, it goes back to our motto and who we are, right? We're the quiet professionals, right? Prime example, we went into Afghanistan, and we had found this cache. and the cachet was way bigger than we can handle, right? There's only 12 of us. And we don't want any recognition for what we do. That's why you don't hear a lot about Green Berets. That's why you don't see a lot of Green Berets out there writing books. Now, granted, there are individuals, the Tim Kennedys of the world and stuff like that, that do have books out there and promotional deals and whatever. But the majority of the time, it's not like Navy SEALs where everybody's got a book and everybody's got their own, training programs and whatever. The Green Berets typically don't want recognition for what we do. We go do our job. We're the quiet professionals, and then we're out. So during this time, when we found that cachet, it was way bigger than we could handle anyhow. We actually called one of the conventional units down and said, "Hey, man, we found this for you. You guys want to come take credit for it? You guys found it." And we let them have it all. They took care of the whole thing. They were in some newspaper. I don't think it was the Army Times, but they were in some newspapers and stuff. Hey, this unit found this cachet and took care of it and yada, yada, yada. And it was kind of cool. There was no mention of us, as we requested. But I think that's probably the biggest thing is just being the quiet professional. You do your job. You go help individuals out, right? What is our motto is liberate the oppressed, right? De oppresso liber. So we go do our job and then we go home. We don't want the recognition. We don't want people patting us on the back. We don't want any of that stuff. We get the enjoyment out of being able to help.
Yeah.
Right. Selfless service.
And I never thought about that. It's more than beneficial more than any value you can get when you actually come into the real world when no one actually gives a fuck. You know what I mean?
It's true. It's true. Yeah, absolutely. The selfless service and helping others out is huge for me. I mean, in fact, I would say that's probably the biggest thing I do nowadays, with combat warriors, is one of the things I do. I'm also friends with quite a few other organizations, nonprofit organizations, the E3 Foundation, Gideon 300. We all know each other. We all help each other out. And it's not about my organization or your organization or his organization. It's about the individuals we're helping, right? So if I have a guy, let's say we have a combat veteran that comes to me, needs some help doing something, whatever it might be, and we don't have the resources for it or we don't have the connections for it, whatever, but Gideon 300 does, or E3 does, or Operation True North, whatever these other organizations, if they have the connections, I'm going to send that combat veteran to them. Because again, it's not about my organization, it's about helping that individual,
That means, and that's what we're trying to do here with TBM, we've definitely done more free stuff than we've done paid because it's not money's just a thing. The way I look at money, it's just, it holds no value.
It comes and goes, and you can't take it with you anyhow.
No, exactly. Yeah. And it's more like I want to leave, a legacy and do as much as I can for I like meeting people. That's why I like hearing people's stories, and that's kind of like why this podcast is so fun to me. Yeah, it's just because I just have this opportunity to do it, and it's neat, because one thing I'm big on, I like to know people's perspectives. Yeah, that's kind of how I walk through life is through everybody else's perspective. That way I can that way I can assess it and really have a good, different angle way to think things through. Because a lot of it was partially of it is because I have a lot of regrets, and I was a leader at the first. When I had my first fire team and stuff. There's a lot of things I wish I would have did differently. Is because I was only looking through one perspective, and that was how the seniors treated me, and that's kind of what I did. And I realized it wasn't the right way to lead Marines. So after that, it kind of just funneled into everything else that I ever did in life. Oh yeah. But
it's amazing when you take your eye out of the scope and look around a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And with marriage and with my family and with just out here, in Longview, Texas, running the ambulance or running in the fire truck, it is, it's just different, and it's very beneficial, But let's talk about this combat warrior stuff, because this is what I found interesting. Because I just learned about it, when we came and did the video for y'all, and it was really neat. And so, there's a lot of different organizations out there that's, veterans and stuff. But I'd like to know y'all's story, hearing it from the source.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Combat Warriors Inc. We've got several different chapters. The main chapter is in North Carolina, and it's a 100% volunteer organization. Nobody gets a paycheck for anything. We're all just dedicated to helping out these combat veterans get help for what they need. And some of them don't necessarily need help, right? Some of them just need a little bit of camaraderie. Some of them just need a little bit of that brotherhood, kind of get together and kind of have a muster, right? Get together and drink some beers, tell some stories, eat some good food, and just enjoy knowing that there's somebody else out there that might be from a different unit, might be from a different time period, like the GWAT era versus maybe like the Desert Storm era, right? And kind of getting together and hey, brother, what's going on? And it's crazy when you see it because guys will first come together and the first day or so, everybody's just kind of getting to know each other. And you've got some interesting personalities. Some of them are really outgoing. Some are a little more conservative and keeping to themselves. But by the end of the event, they're all friends. They're all have exchanged phone numbers. They've been telling stories about their families and their jobs and what they did in the military. And some of them become lifelong friends. They know each other forever, you know. Some of our guides on these hunts, they keep up with every single veteran or almost every single veteran that they take out on these hunts. And every you know, however often, they're staying in contact with them. You know, and they might come out and volunteer later. They might be a warrior on one of our events, and then they come out and volunteer later just to kind of give back and help, right? And that was my thing when I went on my first Combat Warriors event. I was like, oh man, let me help out. Can I take out the trash? Can I sweep? Can I help cook? Whatever. And they're like, no, you're here to just enjoy it. I'm like, okay, but I wanted to give back.
That'd be so hard for me.
Oh, it was. It was. How hard is it to sit there while watching people work?
I can't do it.
I can't do it either, man. It's very difficult. Even when you guys are setting this up, I'm like, I want to help, but I don't know what to do. What do you need? You need help chairs, whatever. Right? But yeah, I always wanted to just give back, man, and that was my thing. In fact, when the opportunity came to me to go on this event, I was like, no, man, give it to somebody more deserving. I didn't feel like I deserved that. I was like, man, give it to somebody more deserving. And it took the president of the organization at the time to tell me, no, listen, you are the one that needs this. You are worthy, you know. You deserve this. And I kind of went, okay, all right. And now that I'm the president of the East Texas chapter, I kind of see it, right, from his perspective at that time. And that I see these combat veterans like, oh man, I didn't do anything. I just went to Iraq for 6 months and hell, we didn't get any firefights. I never even left the base. Well, you know what, man? You are the one that's deserving of it. You need to come out on these events, come enjoy it, get these connections. It's really something awesome to see. Anyhow, so I'll go. Let me digress here for a moment and go back to where it was. When I got out of active duty, I came here to East Texas. I was stationed in Florida at the time. I moved here to East Texas, and I joined the National Guard. And same job, same everything, you know, Special Forces, just with 19th Group instead of 7th Group. And my recruiter was Miguel Fabiani. He was a Master Sergeant at the time, Green Beret from 5th Group. And he said, hey, man, you like hunting? You like fishing, all that stuff? He's like, man, you should come out on this Combat Warriors hunt. I was like, oh, man, give it to somebody more deserving. He's like, no, come on, just go to this event. You're going to enjoy this. And I did. And that's kind of how I got introduced into Combat Warriors, was my Army recruiter, right? Now, he was actually a board member on the East Texas chapter at that time. Now he's still helps out with us. He's actually our military liaison. So he's not actually a board member, but he's still the guy that gets all of these nomination forms, puts them together, and then gets all the individuals to go on each hunt. And he does all of the backgrounds on all these guys and makes sure that they are who they are. Looks over their DD-214s, all that good stuff to vet these individuals before they actually go on the hunts. But that's how I was introduced into Combat Warriors. And again, it's a nonprofit organization, 100% volunteer. Nobody gets a paycheck, like I said. Dedicated to helping out these service members, whether it's spiritually, financially, mentally, physically. We have a psychotherapist on staff, so if somebody needs help in that direction, we can facilitate that. If it's somebody that just needs to get together, hey man, we're here. That 2 a.m. friend we were talking about before we started this, hey man, if I could be that 2 a.m. friend, I'm there for you.
See, I never heard of that. And that's neat. And I think we do that indirectly. Like I was telling you about Drew and whatever. My team leader that killed himself. I wish I could have been that for him, because it sucks. Like that could have, dictated if he's here or not, And
One phone call, right?
yeah, that's it. And which makes me even more pissed is that I still don't make a conscious effort more than I should to reach out and to find where these are. Like you see like on Facebook and on social media, you seem like these guys are living a good life, and which they probably are. But like one thing that you're missing whenever you leave or get out the military, it's that identity and that void, and like
Sense of purpose.
The sense of purpose, like you go from a 22-year-old Marine that's leading combat patrols in Afghanistan to a fucking nobody.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And
Yeah,
that's why I
in the civilian world, they don't see it.
No. And that's why I kind of joined. Well, that's the reason why I joined the fire service, is to be able to kind of fill that void. And I'd be lying to you if it filled it 100%. It filled it up probably 60, 75%, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And that's why I probably would really benefit from getting involved in something. Maybe not being the recipient of something, but like just going to help. Yeah. Just being involved in it.
We're always looking for volunteers, right? And especially if you're military, that's even a bigger bonus, because then you can kind of get together with these veterans and whether they're Army, Air Force, Navy, whatever they are, and just be another guy there, right? Hey, man, another brother is here. It's pretty awesome, brother or sister, whatever, right?
It is. I think I'd benefit from it too, because like my wife would argue all the time that I think I'm fine, like whatever. But she says like I would benefit from something like that, just because like I don't know, like you just that will always be a piece of you, and no matter whether you wanted to or not, if you cared about it and you really enjoyed it and you really put your time and effort into it and you gave it your all, like it's a piece of you. If you was a shitbag and stuff like that and you got out, it probably don't mean nothing to you, and it probably still does a little bit, but not for the guys that gave 110%. But I think it's God bless that there's stuff out there like that for people, because no telling what the suicide rate would be. It's already bad now.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. It's absolutely ridiculous. Again, I was talking to my chaplain last night. I gave him a phone call. I still keep in contact with him. He's from 7th Group, when I was there, and he's done a bunch of assignments since then. But he's a Ranger, he grew up in Ranger Regiment and ended up becoming, he got out, had to break in service, and then came back in as an officer. But him and I still stay in contact. I call him, probably every 2 months or so, him and I talk. So we don't have to talk all the time. We talk on Facebook more than anything else. But I called him last night, and he said the suicide rate is ridiculous. He had 11 suicides in his unit during his 2-year time period in this last duty station he had. And again, is way, way, way too high.
What do you think it is?
It's a good question, man. And I think we all do it. And it's not something that we try to do. But when we get out or while we're still in, there are certain stressors and there's certain things we have no control over, right? And so some guys crawl in a bottle, some guys get a hold of pills, some guys go to the gym religiously like 2-3 times a day, and they're working out however much time, whatever their outlet is, they've got some sort of an outlet, but you need an outlet. And I think a lot of folks just don't have a good outlet, so they go to a bad outlet, again, crawling on a bottle or whatever they're doing. They need some sort of outlet. And I think if we can provide more of an outlet to these individuals, whether they're still in or they just got out or they've been out for a little while, give them something, I think then that would be a huge benefit. I think that's, for me, from my perspective, now I might be entirely wrong on that, but I think it is that we just don't have an outlet, right? We don't have that brotherhood, that camaraderie. For me, it's giving back, right? That's my outlet, right? Don't get me wrong. I crawled in a bottle for a little while too.
Yeah, I did that and worse.
Yeah. We've all done something. I was drinking, 24 or 30 pack a night or drinking a bottle of whiskey, whatever it was, just trying to find myself. And again, it was self-destructive. But after finding Combat Warriors, and I'm not saying that's like my savior or anything like that, but between that and and knowing other individuals and connecting with those other individuals and having a good family, I was able to crawl out of that bottle and go back to giving back to the community. You know, my business, I'm giving back to the community. I like to keep it all local. I like to spend my money local, even if it's more expensive. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm keeping it local instead of spending it at some big giant retail store. And then again, having that connection with other individuals and having that 2 a.m. friend like we talked about, you know, that's a huge one. A buddy of mine called me the other night, and I was his 2 a.m. friend, and I was happy to be there, man, because I was able to give back.
Tell us a little bit. That's neat. It's like, that's wild. You never even met the guy.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with the term 2 a.m. friend, it's that friend you can call at 2 a.m. and he'll be there to support you, right? So I've got a couple of 2 a.m. friends, and I hope that they have a couple of 2 a.m. friends, and I would like to be that guy for more individuals if I can, to where if somebody calls me at 2 a.m., hey, man, I'm here for you. So the story we're referring to, though, is my buddy Jarrett called me a couple nights ago, and he just went through some bad times. He's a retired out Marine. Well, maybe not retired. He spent a certain amount of time in there and then got out. But so he called me. It was about 11:30 at night, and he calls me, and he just wanted to talk because he was in a bad way. And he just got out of the hospital, and basically he had driven himself and worked himself so hard that his body started shutting certain things down, and he finally ended up getting hospitalized over it because he's putting that much stress on himself. And he builds guns too. He's a gun guy. That's kind of how we got to know each other. It was actually on Facebook. He was a gun guy, and he hit me up, and then eventually we started, calling each other back and forth and talking about guns and talking about family, and we just kind of connected. The reality is, we've been friends for probably 2 years, never met each other in face to face. We talk on Facebook. We talk on the phone. Probably once a week we talk on the phone.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah,
That's cool. It's cool. It's cool, but it's crazy.
It is. Yeah, he lives right down in San Antonio. And my intent is definitely to meet him at some point. But he called me, and he was in just kind of a bad way. And so we talked for a little bit. And then he says, hey, brother, he says, would you pray with me? I said, hell yes, I would. That'd be awesome, man. And I was sitting on my couch and my feet kicked up, and I put the phone on speaker and just set it on my chest. I closed my eyes, and we just prayed for a little bit, and I got the goosebumps, man. I got the chills while we were sitting there praying. And we got all done with the prayer, man. We talked for another 15 minutes or so, and you could just tell in his voice how much that helped him, having that 2 a.m. friend. From the beginning of the conversation to the end of the conversation, his whole demeanor was just completely different. You can sense it over the phone.
That's what it's all about, bro.
It was.
That's it. Yeah, if you can just impact somebody's life that much without even knowing them, like, to me, I can't even fathom it.
It's amazing. Crazy. It's powerful.
Like, that stuff I like to see in the fire service. Fire service is difficult because, you do go home, and you have a strong brotherhood there, but it's not like the military.
Yeah.
Because, there's always, for one thing, when you're military, there's no escaping it. You're there. You're there with your brothers or your sisters or whatever. But, the fire department, if you don't like somebody or whatever, you don't have to like them. Or in the military, you can't do, but, you go home and you don't see them for a few days, and you come back and you just deal with them for 24 hours. That's it.
Yeah.
But the brotherhood, it's a different. It's just different. Yeah. And that's what I try to explain to people. But in the fire service too, though, you still have the suicide rate and EMS and all that, police, you still go through the same struggles to the core. They're the same struggles. And something like that, people have a persona where this is just a military thing, and it don't have to be.
Yeah, no, and it's much higher in the military.
Yeah,
and it's much higher in any of the first responders for sure than most other occupations. Don't get me wrong; it still exists in other occupations as well. High stress situations. Guys that are out fishing for crab, their rate of death is actually higher than the military, percentage wise. It's a very high stress job. Working yourself to the bone. So I would imagine it's probably very prevalent in their line of work as well, among other lines of work. But I think the military and the first responders is just so much higher than most others. That's where we concentrate on it. And all of those folks who are in the military, EMS, firefighters, whatever, they're there to serve. They raised their right hand and volunteered to serve. And I think that's why we need to really kind of concentrate on that and definitely give back to them, because they deserve it. They volunteered to go out there and defend your freedoms or defend your communities or, help out when situations are happening like, fires and hurricanes and whatever. They're out there volunteering to do the work to protect their family, their friends, their community, their country. So it's pretty amazing and pretty selfless in my opinion.
Yeah, because I didn't know what none of it was until I got in it, but you're running on somebody's mom, you're running on somebody's kid that's in cardiac arrest, and to me, it hits different. It does hit different. And in those, you were showing up on somebody's most horrible day, especially that one of the PD calls, that's one of the ones I hate the most. It was sad. Young couple, 4-month-old baby had SIDS, worked cardiac arrest, grabbed the baby. I knew it was already dead, with all the lividity and stuff already on it. But I still worked it, being my partner. And he works for us now, but he was a student at the time. But my partner, I'll tell a story. I don't think he'd mind it, but he worked cardiac arrest on his own daughter. And he was a paramedic and stuff, and it tore his family apart and stuff. But he gave with what I'm going through my grandpa, his story gives me so much strength because I hear the stories of how he ran that code, and it was how could you be so mentally strong enough to run a code on your own daughter and really succeed in it and do very well and be able to uphold himself? But now, whenever he runs a PD code, it's always a flashback. But he still decides to stay in this line of work and keep running these calls, even though it's going to put him in a mental state like that. That's a lot of courage, a lot of bravery, and he's nothing but selfless. He's one of the best people I know, and he's very Christian, and I respect him a lot.
It's a lot of sacrifice.
We're two different people. I'm very kind of the edgy, outgoing person, and he's definitely kind of the computer whiz and stuff. We would never hang out or never even cross each other's paths in the real world.
Yeah.
But it's just cool, even the military is the same way. These different dynamics of people just can relate to a certain thing and cling on to it. And it's just neat.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of sacrifice. Very cool.
It is. But with combat warriors, where does that end? Are y'all gonna keep on doing and growing these chapters and stuff? Is it kind of how long's it been going for? And I guess what's kind of the growth path for it?
Yeah, so this originally, Combat Warriors started in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, originally. And I don't know exactly who's the original person that started that group up. I know that Bill Warren is the current president, and he's been there the entire time, to the best of my knowledge. But that's the original chapter, and it was just that one chapter. And an individual from here, who's an SF guy, first group guy, ended up going on one of the events there at Fort Bragg, and then came home here to East Texas and was like, man, we got to start something like that here. So he reached out and contacted Bill Warren and the board members over there and said, hey, I want to start another chapter of the same program you have going on, the same organization. And so he actually started the East Texas chapter. He got together with a few individuals around here that are well known in the community. Sam Satterwhite being one of them, Satterwhite Log Homes.
That's what I heard. I just heard the story about that. So actually, Longview Fire goes and does ambulance standby out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Sam Satterwhite was involved in that. He passed away from COVID a couple of years ago. But they created this chapter 10 years ago. So we just had our 10th year anniversary. And it originally was just one event per year, and it was the deer hunt that we had in November. And then it progressively grew, and as it continued to grow from just a couple of individuals to an actual board and continue to grow from one event to 2 events to 4 events. And now we're up to 17, 18 events that we're doing this year alone. And it's not just taking people on a hunt or just taking people on a fishing trip. We also do stuff like we judge car shows, right? We'll go be like car judges because military, we like cleanliness and neatness. So what better to judge a car than have military folks do it, right?
If you don't do it right, you get hazed after.
Yeah. So we do stuff like that. We do the air balloon races. We sell merchandise there and try to raise awareness and get these hand out flyers and nomination forms we meet veterans all the time, right? Just like here at my shop, I keep nomination forms and I keep these flyers here because if I see a veteran come in here, we start talking. Now I had a Navy SEAL come in here just the other day. I'll get into that story in a second, but so we do all those events. Additionally, we pay for, we remodeled a house a couple of years back. We paid for a furnace for there was a female veteran that her furnace went out in her house and she just could not make the payments on the house, couldn't pay for this new furnace. So we actually paid for it. We give out scholarships every year. We have these high school students write what it means to serve. We have them write an essay, right, on what it means to serve. And whoever has the best essays for all these different college or different high schools, we have 7 that we're doing this year. We give 7 $1,000 scholarships out. That's awesome. Just for writing a simple essay, right? So we do that. We had a Green Beret pass away that was really terrible at planning, apparently. Older guy, he was in his 60s, I'm sorry. And he didn't let his wife know that he really just was terrible with money and terrible with planning. And so she couldn't even pay for the funeral. So we paid for the whole funeral. Like, we'll take care of that. Don't worry about it. Give a little less stress on her. We had another guy, his house burnt down. We gave him $3,500 just to get a hotel room until the insurance could come and assess the situation and write him a check so that he could get a new house and do all that stuff. So we pay for stuff like that. Again, it's not just taking veterans out on these hunting and fishing trips.
Way beyond that.
Yeah. We do a lot of other stuff as well. And again, we've got a psychotherapist on staff. If somebody needs help, and they're not getting the help they need at, say, the VA, right? Because the VA has a pretty bad reputation, right? We have one that we can help them out. She doesn't charge veterans. That's all she does is see veterans. We do quite a bit of stuff for the community and giving back and trying to take these veterans out. And again, some of them end up being lifelong connections.
So is it only combat veterans, or do y'all kind of focus around all veterans?
So originally it started off as combat veterans only because, we were at the height of war. We did, 23 years at war? Yeah. And that's who we were really focusing on. But we do actually take other individuals out that are veterans that never went to combat. They might have deployed, or maybe they didn't even deploy. But we do take those individuals in as well. Certain events like the deer hunt that we do every year, we actually have 17 special operators go out there. That hunt was the brainchild of Jordan, the guy that started this chapter, and Sam Satterwhite. In fact, it's held at Sam Satterwhite's ranch. But it was for the special operators, right? So we bring in Navy SEALs, Rangers, Special Forces, PJs, any of the special operations community. So that hunt is for that community alone. However, if we have somebody that's a last minute cancellation, for example, and we have other people that are not necessarily special operations, but still went out and did some really cool stuff for this country or for their community, we'll take them in. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's say we have 17, for example, and 2 of them cancel at the last minute, and we have 2 other individuals lined up to go on an event, but they're not special operations, we'll put them in that slot. Absolutely. Come on. And again, they're all vetted, right? So we know who they are. Yeah. We know what they've done. and we try to give it to the most deserving that we possibly can, obviously. And again, the rest of the events, we try to do combat veterans, but we do have veterans out there quite a few times that are not combat vets, and we'll take them in on those events too.
Man, that's cool. And man, I was looking at this recent study that was done. There's actually, like, I think it was for during the COVID stuff. I'm sure COVID has a reason for why this number high, but like there was more like combat MOS people were committing suicide than actual combat guys. Mm-hmm. And I think there's probably a lot to do with that. Like if I didn't go down the path that I went down, I'd have probably didn't commit suicide because like I would have had to live, like because like that was what I wanted in life. That's all I wanted in life. Mm-hmm. And if I didn't get to go down that path, it would have ate me alive the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I still didn't even do as much as I wanted. I still didn't even do my original game plan. Yeah. Like there's so much more that I wish I would have done, and that eats at me, but I try not to let it bother me too much.
I look at it this way, and I had to come to the realization. I had a few strong conversations with God about this. No matter what my plan is, I might have the greatest plan ever in my mind, in my brain, right? Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't work out, I used to get really upset. I used to get really pissed off about it, that I could not physically meet the goals that I had set, mm-hmm. right? Whatever that plan was. And I had to come to the realization that my plan is great, God's plan is better. Mm-hmm. Let him just trust and have faith that his plan is better than your plan. 100%. He's going to put you where he needs you to be. He's going to put you in connection with the people you need to connect with. At the end of the day, his plan's way better than our plan. Yeah. For example, I asked God for 10 kids. I ended up with 2, and he said, that's it. And I was pissed. I really was. Like, I was legitimately upset that I couldn't physically have what I wanted, my plan, right?
I'm just surprised you wanted 10 kids.
Yeah. I want a whole fire team of them, right? Yeah, no, I love kids. I love family. And so that took me a little while, and it took me a bit for me to just go, you know what, my God's plan is better than my plan, and I'm just going to have to do that, And I think that's the biggest thing, that when something doesn't work out for me is like, well, I guess God didn't need, he's going to give you a couple different answers, right?
Yeah.
He's either going to say no, which, okay, I got it. Or he's going to say not right now. Or he's going to say yes. So those are the 3 answers. And I find that most people that get the not right now are not taking it as not right now. They're taking it as no. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe the timing's just not right. Maybe he's got a plan to where that's still going to work out, but he wants to do it on his timing because it's more beneficial. It's better for you, right? So just because it doesn't work out, maybe he just says it's not right now.
Especially, like, he knows all things,
He does.
And actually, when my grandpa got cancer, I seen a lot of his works. But like, my dad was in between jobs and stuff like that. But like my dad, so one of his jobs got shut down and he was waiting to get another job. But during that time my dad didn't have work is when my grandpa went into diagnosis of glioblastoma, and he was receiving treatments. And my dad was able to be there with my mom and take him to his appointments and stuff like that. The day when he got home and he's no longer receiving treatments, literally he got a job. And like, that's enough evidence for me. And I've heard many stories like that. And like, but that God's worked in my life, and he's done, I know he's my God. Because, I got in trouble with some drugs, and I asked him, please get rid of this for me, and he did. And some of the military trouble that I got into, I asked him, please get rid of it, and he did. Like, anything I've ever asked of God, he's done it. And so, like, and I still fail him. Every single day I fail him.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something I struggle with. But it's just like, it's just all part of it. We're imperfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's kind of like being at the gym, right? Mm-hmm. And, same thing with a lot of churches. Now, I don't necessarily go to churches. We talked about that, right? Mm-hmm. I still go every once in a while, but, we could have church right now, just the 2 or 3 of us, right? We can have church right this minute. Mm-hmm. We're talking about God right now. We're in church right now. That is reality. So I don't have to go to some building that says church on it, right?
But the whole Combat Warriors model, I'd like to know more because I definitely want to get involved, especially more like volunteer. I want to volunteer. Like if we can, I'd love to just be able to continue doing video production for y'all and
Sure.
advertising, marketing, whatever y'all
That'd
need
be
us.
awesome.
Build a YouTube channel for y'all's chapter over here and grow it. And,
Yeah,
because that's like YouTube and like social media it's a blessing and it's also a curse.
Right.
But I think like go back to God, like He uses it and then Satan uses it. So yeah, I think we can too.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
like go and there's so much we can do and just outreach because I didn't know about it. Like I know a few organizations around here, but I've always, for one thing, I felt like you said, like I'm not deserving of it. There's people that's done way more cooler stuff than I've ever had, and I don't know, and I just it gives me anxiety. Anytime like you talk about mental health or anything like that, like we had somebody come to work that they talk about it, like it just gives me anxiety just talking about it. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
Well, you need that 2 a.m. friend we were talking about.
yeah,
right?
I do. I probably do. Because if I wake my wife up at 2 a.m., she ain't gonna be happy.
Right.
She loves her sleep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always kind of had that 2 a.m. friend. I never had a name for it. I never had a name for it. It was just, the guy that I could call, or I could be that guy that somebody else can call, right? It was my chaplain that I spoke with that I was telling you about, Charlie Shields is his name, Major Shields. And he's the one that gave it the name, the 2 a.m. friend. And that's actually a speech that he gives quite often, is that 2 a.m. friend. So, but I think that's probably one of the most beneficial things you can have. I mean, these organizations are great, don't get me wrong. Getting a group of friends, that's great. I got it. But I think the most beneficial thing is that 2 a.m. friend.
100%. Because I was actually concerned with, like after the Wounded Warriors scandal went on, I was actually kind of concerned, like what people started thinking about these organizations and stuff, But thank God, Wounded Warriors, it was just targeted to them and nothing else, Whenever they had their little money laundering thing going on. But let's talk about your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
This shit's crazy.
Absolutely, yeah, man. So this is 903 Tactical. So I actually started this business back when I was still in a bottle, right? And the reason I started it was it wasn't by design. I didn't get out of the military and say, "Hey, man, I'm gonna open a gun shop." That's not what I was doing. The reality is, I had gotten out. I was depressed. I was, not in a good place. I really wasn't. And I was trying to find where I needed to be because my intent was, I had this grand plan in my brain. The reality is, it was horrible. But my brain was just telling me, hey, this is a great idea. You should do this, right? I didn't do the proper planning. I did terrible market analysis. My intent was to build an off-road shop here in Gilmer because they've got a off-road park called Barnwell Mountain just down the street. And so I was gonna do that because I grew up with off-road trucks and buggies and dirt bikes and jet skis and all this other fun stuff. And restoring muscle cars. That was pretty cool. And when I was in active duty, I was still doing that stuff on the side, just kind of a little side hustle, help my buddies out, doing lift kits and whatever else. So that was my intent. And then when I got out and we moved here to East Texas, hey, Larry.
Hey.
Come on in.
What are you doing?
We're doing a podcast, sir.
Oh, cool.
How you doing?
Okay.
The sheriff has decided to bless us with his presence.
Yeah,
Come on over.
talk to him.
Cool, yeah. Cool. So 903 Tactical, again, active duty, and I was going to open that off-road shop. And I did a piss poor market analysis. Didn't know what the heck I was doing. I just had this delusions of grandeur, I guess. I was going to open this cool off-road shop. I didn't have hardly any capital. I mean, I literally poured all my money into buying a house and remodeling the whole house because I bought it sight unseen, foreclosed home after I bought my ranch. So my intent was to build a house out there. It just never didn't happen in the timeline I needed, so I needed a place to stay. So I bought this house that was foreclosed, fixed it all up. I didn't have the capital to start the company that I needed. Again, delusions of grandeur, right? I did a terrible market analysis and terrible planning to do that. So I took a job working for a guy in Gilmer that owned a muffler shop, actually. But he was doing off-road fabrication in the back. And so I started talking to him, and he says, yeah, man, this is come do fabrication for me. I'd be happy to hire you on for a little bit. So I took a job over there for a few months, and it was fun, but it really wasn't fulfilling all the needs that I had as far as financially. I wasn't getting paid very much. Don't get me wrong, it was a small business, and he was doing the best he could. He's probably paying me more than he could afford, honestly. But so I did that for a little bit, and then a buddy of mine, my first senior, Ivan Acosta, he started talking to me. I showed him how to paint cars and stuff, and I painted his mom's Jeep for him, and we worked on cars and trucks every once in a while. And he talked to me about doing Cerakote. And he mentioned to me, hey, you got to check out the Cerakote process. It's for firearms, but you can also use it on engine internal parts, depending on which Cerakote you use. I was like, well, okay, cool. And I'd always grown up, building guns, just kind of on the side, not necessarily manufacturing anything, just kind of putting stuff together, buying parts, putting it together, and what you'd call a build or assembly, whatever you want to call it. And we did minor gunsmithing, growing up, whether it was opening up a barrel channel so it's a free-floating barrel, whatever. And people started seeing the stuff that I was doing, and I got this Cerakote, and I had $50 in Cerakote, and I was like, okay, cool. So I Cerakoted a couple of my guns, and people saw that, and was like, man, can you do that to mine? And I was like, yeah, sure. So, I started doing it for other people as well. And as time progressed, I got to the point where I had a whole bunch of other people's guns in my house that I was doing all this work on, and I'm like, man, I'm going to get in trouble with the ATF. I need to get a license. And so I did. I applied for my FFL, and I got a business license, and I thought of a name, and I'm like, man, 903 Tactical Arms Company sounds good.
It's good.
Yeah, because it's the area code here, right? It's Texas. And so I created 903 Tactical with $50 in Cerakote, just a little bit of Cerakote, just a little starter pack, and I already had a spray gun from painting cars anyhow, just a little touch-up gun. And I started doing this Cerakote. My intent was to just kind of do the Cerakote thing, right? And then I started getting people like, hey, man, can you machine this? Can you machine that? And I'm like, well, I have the machines, so I don't see why not. So I started threading barrels, and then I started doing gun, assembling firearms and doing trigger jobs and just all these little things. And it just kind of blossomed from there. And for 5 years, I was working out of my garage, essentially. It was a 24 by 20 garage that I had all my Cerakote stuff in and my machines. That's where I was doing all the dirty work. And then I took part of my back room and I put a wall on there and just made a little office. So that's where I was doing assembly, disassembly, and billing and all that stuff. And I did that for 5 years. And 5 years worth of working out of my house, essentially. And it grew to the point where I had way too much. I'd outgrown the area. I couldn't put any more machines in my garage because it was just packed full. You could barely walk through there. It looked like a grenade hit the damn place because there's metal chips and stuff everywhere.
Did your wife love it?
Yeah, no.
My wife's about to kill me with all the shit I got around the house.
Yeah. And then, of course, my little shop right there, and people would show up at all times of day. They'd show up at 6 a.m., even though we didn't open until 10 at the time. And so it just kind of became inconvenient having people show up at my house whenever. It'd be Sunday afternoon and somebody would just show up and you're like, well, I guess I'll take you in. We're not open today. But anyhow, it just grew to the point where I was like, man, we're going to need to move it into a commercial piece of property. So the timing actually worked out good where I had a rotation going to Lebanon. And so I kind of thought about it. I'm like, man, I'm going to lose a boatload of money doing this rotation. Yeah, I'm going to go over there and get tax-free money, but my company's going to suffer, so my family will still be getting a paycheck from the military. So they'll be okay, but my company's really going to suffer if I'm going to be gone for 8 months. Luckily, I had my father-in-law who moved down here from Pennsylvania after he retired, and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law is a bookkeeper. My father-in-law was a mechanic for 40 plus years, and he's done a whole bunch of other jobs as well. He's kind of the jack of all trades. And so he wanted to learn how to gunsmith, and because he's retired, he's got nothing better to do. So he's like, man, I want to occupy my time doing something. So I taught him how to do a lot of the gunsmithing stuff, and then I taught him how to do the Cerakoting stuff. And so while I was gone, a lot of the services we couldn't offer, like stippling, for example, because I'm the one that does it. A lot of the complex Cerakote patterns and stuff he couldn't do because he was still doing basic stuff at the time. So a lot of the services didn't exist, but he still kept the company running while I was deployed. And then while I was deployed, right before I left, I figured the best time to have the building built is while I'm deployed, so I can, they can break ground and then they can have it finished. By the time I get back from my deployment, I can literally just move in and start running, right?
That was smart.
Yeah. That goes back to that timing thing.
Yeah,
right?
God's plan. I was just about to mention that a while ago. Like God's plan.
That's it. It just, the timing worked out, and God said not now back then, and now he just said now's the time. So, and I truly believe that was his intent. So Terry Edney, a friend of mine, he's also a board member with Combat Warriors. He does these commercial buildings, and he also does residential shops and stuff for people. And I contacted him. I said, hey, man, I want to build this building. And I basically gave him a piece of paper with a rough sketch on it of what I wanted with some basic measurements of, the showroom and the office, a couple bathrooms, maybe an upstairs, and then the rest of the work area out there. He says, yeah, we can do that. And he threw a dollar amount at me. He says, this is what it's going to take. I said, boom, done. Sounds good. Mm-hmm. So I had already just sold my ranch, so I had some money from that. And I got a small loan to pay for the rest of it. And he broke ground right before I deployed. And then he kept sending me pictures while I was deployed, which is like this huge thing for me, right? Every week I was excited. I'm like, what are the next pictures I'm going to get?
I bet you was so ready to get home.
Oh, every day. Every day.
It probably didn't make anything easy for you.
No. So I would get these pictures, and I would walk around to all my guys. I'm like, dude, check it out. My new building. Look at, they got the concrete pad for it, or, the walls are up now, and they were excited for me too. It's like if your buddy won the lottery, dude, I'd be so excited for him. Like seeing my friends successful is one of the biggest things for me.
100%.
Like
what we were just talking about earlier.
Yeah. Even if I'm not that successful, if one of my friends is being successful, dude, that is so cool. I'm so there and support them. I don't get jealous. I don't get pissy about that. I'm just like, dude, that's awesome. Can I help you? Can I help you become more successful?
Exactly. That's my thought. Yeah. That's my whole thought process on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I came back from the deployment in October, and this building that we're currently in right now is about 90% finished. And we just kind of had to do the final little touches on it. And then February 7th, we finally opened up to the public. And then we just had our grand opening March 10th, I believe it was, or 11th. And we just had our grand opening. So we've only really been open for about 2 months in this new facility. The company's been around for quite a while. I say quite a while, about 5 years, a little over 5 years. But yeah, this new facility, and it's amazing, man. You can see behind us some of the guns and stuff. Yeah,
it's crazy.
And so we're not the standard gun shop like you walk into most gun shops, and it's kind of like walking into Walmart, right? You just pick and choose whatever you want. I want this gun, I want this ammo, I want this sling, whatever it is, and you go over and pay for it, right? We're not that gun shop. Yes, we do sell guns. Yes, we do sell ammunition. Yes, we sell parts and pieces and all that other fun stuff, but we're a custom gun shop, right? That's what we focus on. Somebody comes in here and has a broken gun, they just need some gunsmithing done. Sure, we can do that. They've got grandpa's old shotgun that was given down to him in a trust or whatever, and it's been sitting in a closet. It's rusty, the wood's banged up, whatever. We can do a restoration on that and make it back to what it should have been. We can clean it up. We can Cerakote it. We can redo the wood. We can put all new springs in it. We can resource these parts, or we even manufacture the parts. If we can't find the part, we'll make it, if we have to.
That's what sets you different from everybody else.
Right.
Is the whole manufacturing.
Yeah.
Especially with like the COVID supply chain and all that jacked up right now, and the way that the gun industry's going.
Oh yeah.
That's gonna save you.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
probably already has.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of folks couldn't get stuff, and even for us, it was hard for us getting materials, just to make these parts that we needed to make. So we were doing that, and then of course we do all the custom work that people want. People want barrels threaded so they can put suppressors or muzzle brakes, whatever, on there. People want optic cuts done on their pistol, their everyday carry gun, whatever, so they can mount a red dot on there. We do that. We do the Cerakote, the stippling, the machining. I mean, like, you name it, we're a one-stop shop. If you want any kind of custom work done, we can do it. We only outsource a couple of little things, and the reason we outsource it is not because we are not physically capable of doing it. It's because they can do it at a production rate versus us. We're doing more one-off custom stuff. So we don't do full production runs on things. Our production run might be limited to like 20, right? Versus them, they're just producing these parts over and over and over, or whatever that service might be. So we can hand it to them. They can still do it to our specs, right? To our tolerances that we request. And they can do it cheaper than we can produce it ourselves. And they're still doing it with 100% American materials, right here, local community. We don't outsource anything any further than 25 miles from us. So generally speaking, with the exception of our barrel manufacturer, they're actually up in Idaho. But they're still using 100% American materials. It's an American family-owned company, and they produce our barrels for us. So,
See, I don't know anybody who manufactures barrels around this area.
no, I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, you've got Schillen, isn't too far away, but that's probably about your closest one that's actually a big manufacturer. Yeah.
So these carbon fiber guns is what's crazy, and I never even knew it was a thing. But like, man, it's so light. And going to, we thermal hunt and stuff at our place and stuff, and you really think about it, because, like the gun you're making, we don't, the Coyote 10 one that you had out there, that's, pretty much essentially what we have. And they do get heavy when you put everything on it, thermals and stuff. But you can't tell me that's not a good CQB gun too, though.
Yeah, so we found this niche. We started manufacturing our own AR-15s. We actually do AR-9 billet receivers now as well. We started kind of figuring out that we had this void in the gun world where nobody was making really light AR-15s, or if they were, few and far between. They might make lightweight components, but not complete firearms. And we found with these folks that like to go out and hunt pigs and coyotes and stuff like that at nighttime, and they're stacking thermals and battery packs and suppressors and tripods on their firearms. By the time they get all done, they're walking around with 20 pounds worth of gear or more, and they're walking around the fields. They get pretty smoked after a little while, right? So we were like, well, why don't we just start making lightweight components and make these lightweight firearms for them? So we kind of put some research together, and I put one together for myself initially, just because I wanted a lightweight firearm to do this, and put a lot of R&D into it, and put a lot of time into it, put a lot of rounds down range, and got a lot of pigs and some coyotes and bobcats and such. And I said, yeah, we need to just start manufacturing these and producing them. So we had some other folks that wanted that same style firearm, maybe in a different configuration or caliber. So we just started manufacturing them. We started off with the 223s and started going into the 6.8 spec, the 7.62 by 39, 6.5 Grendels, et cetera, in all different configurations, whether it was a pistol or a rifle. And that's what we started doing. And then we kind of branched out from there a little bit, got into the long range series. We were building 22-inch barrel guns, still carbon fiber ultralights, a 22-inch barrel gun, still only weighing 7 pounds,
That's crazy.
And that was a heavy barrel. It wasn't a real lightweight barrel or anything. So we're producing guns right now all the way down to 3 pounds, 12 ounces on an AR-15 platform. All of them that we produced up until about a year ago were all ultralights, all the carbon fiber ultralights. We decided a year ago to produce a firearm. We did a limited run of 21 guns for Black Cypress Training Group. They're a training group out of Jefferson, Texas. It's actually run by 3 state game wardens that one of them was military, but the other 2 actually do quite a bit of tactical training and shooting.
The SWAT and stuff, or
On the law enforcement side of the house.
side. Okay.
Yeah. And they created this training group where they teach basic pistol classes and they teach carbine courses and stuff like that. So we got together with them and said, hey, man, let's produce a firearm with your name on it and my name on it. And when we sell the firearm, we will give them a discount on your class. So we ended up giving them 50% discount on the class. So they could go do essentially a 8-hour course for like $150 when they purchased the firearm.
That jam up deal.
Yeah,
That's smart.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we produced again 21 of them. They were all the same gun. There was 5.56 and there's 7.62. But other than that, they were all exactly the same. We did it in their dark charcoal gray color. They have their T-shirts and all that. We put their logo on it, and we produced those and then sold them. Then we decided we were going to produce a gun for PRS because I got lots of friends that shoot competitively. And so I started looking into the rules for a gas gun because they do have gas gun divisions now for precision rifle series. And we decided, hey, on the AR-15 platform, what would be the best? And you can actually do the PRS light tactical division guns. Now, there are some limitations. It has to be either 223 or 5.56. You can't shoot over a 77 grain bullet, et cetera, et cetera. And so we made our first heavy gun. And that was the PRS light tactical. It was a 20-inch gun, all dressed out, 100% scope and everything, weighs about 15 pounds.
Is this gun right here?
Yep, that's this one right here. Yep, so this is the PRS Light Tactical Division gun. The only thing we've done to it that you wouldn't get is the bipod. You don't get that. The muzzle brake is optional. And then, of course, I threw my own scope on it. But the cool part about it is it has an integrated ARCA rail into the handguard, so you can slide that back and forth on that ARCA rail. And then it's got the adjustable length of pull, adjustable stock. It's got a really nice TriggerTech diamond trigger in it. And we put a lot of R&D into the accuracy of that gun as well. That particular gun is the first one we produced. Of course, serial number 4, I believe it is. So I'm definitely keeping that one for myself. But that gun shot a 5/16 inch group, 5-shot group at 100 during barrel break-in with factory ammo.
Really?
And I went, well, that's definitely showing some good signs. So during testing, it did really well. The worst group we shot with it, again with factory ammo, and we shot a whole slew of different types, was just over an inch group at 100. So, I mean, it definitely shoots even with factory ammo. And if you were to do some hand loads for it, you could punch one ragged hole if you wanted at 100. No issues.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Good looking gun too. Very good looking.
Yeah. So that's the only heavy gun we produce. We're getting ready to launch a new line, which you saw in the back room there. The coyote tan colored ones there. It's actually Troy FDE. We're getting ready to launch our battle rifles. That'll be coming out here pretty soon. As soon as we get done with the testing. It's a 16-inch rifle. It is all aluminum, no carbon fiber. It's still pretty lightweight. It only weighs 6 pounds.
Oh, it felt good.
Yeah. We did quite a few things to it. Like the B5 grip, for example, is one of the things that I'd like to point out to people. What ends up happening is when you bring that gun up with a standard AR, your wrist is kind of kinked up like this, and it puts a lot of tension here. So the B5s actually straighten that out a little bit, so it's a little bit more ergonomic, a little bit more comfortable. So it's just little things like that we did throughout the entire firearm to make it a little more ergonomic. And it's at a much cheaper price point than all the carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is cool, it's lightweight, it's awesome, but it's not cheap, right? So we did all the aluminum. You can beat the snot out of it. You're not going to hurt the gun. It's not quite as lightweight, but it's much more durable. And again, we're going to start producing those here pretty soon when we get done with testing.
So when are you thinking about launching that? Do you have a kind of time frame on it?
I'm actually looking at debuting it on April 29th.
April 29th?
Yeah.
You're going to do like a little shooting range, or like how you're going to debut it?
Well, so we're going to be at Top Shot. They've got a range day down there. On April 29th. That's an indoor shooting range there in Longview.
Uh-huh.
And so we'll be down there, and we will have one of them down there, and we're going to give it to Top Shot so that people can take it into their range and shoot that firearm. And then if they want to purchase one, we'll have it available to purchase too.
Top Shot, like the show Top Shot, or is it like
No, Top Shot indoor shooting range.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, and on the Loop in Longview.
Yeah,
East Loop. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they used to stock our firearms. In fact, they still do. They just ordered one just the other day. They don't stock as many as they used to, but we're all friends. All the gun shops around here are all friends. Mm-hmm. We all know each other. We almost all the gunsmithing that's done around here, with the exception of one or two other people from other shops, they generally send them to us because they know that we're going to produce a good product for them and get it taken care of. So,
have you ever looked into like any kind of shops outside of this county or like around Longview area? Because there's a gun shop that's pretty well known called Meadow Ridge. There's also one called Timber Ridge, and that's kind of where I've been buying from for the past few years. I like to introduce some of your stuff because they're more into this. Is definitely their model. They don't like manufacture their own guns, but they just display them. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put in a little word for you.
Yeah, there's a bunch of gunsmiths around here, and there's a lot of folks graduated SDI and trying to start their own thing up, and I totally support them. That's awesome, man. There's a whole bunch of your regular gun shops like Walmart, like I said, walk in, buy whatever.
See, I don't go to Walmarts. I don't go to academies.
Right.
The only reason why I went to Atwood's is just they had them on sale for that little SIG I got.
Right.
And I couldn't beat the price on it.
Right. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of shops around here. Well, there's a whole bunch of shops throughout the country. But anytime I can meet somebody new, anytime I can make a connection with somebody in another shop, awesome, man. If they can do something we can't, I'll send them there. And if we can do something they can't, they send them to us. So we all kind of work together.
A little network.
Yeah.
Yep. That's badass. So the way I found y'all, I don't even know exactly how I found you. I think y'all just randomly came up on my Facebook. And one thing I noticed, it was your one of your Green Beret signs. And then I messaged y'all on Facebook and stuff, and I'm pretty sure y'all thought I was a scam because I was like, hey, well, I seen your shop, I want to come shoot some free videos for y'all. And anytime you say anything, but for no one, like when you say someone offer something free, it's always too good to be true.
So now I'm gonna have to go dig back through all my messages. Where was it? Hold on.
But it's just badass, and that's what we try to do. We try to support, talk about like friends being successful. Like it's just everybody that's in our community want to be successful because this world's not an easy world.
Oh, absolutely.
So any kind of connection and positive connection that you can make and like help each other out, like not for like our benefit or your benefit, just genuine. It goes far. But,
and yeah, exactly. If you can help out somebody, do it. Especially if it's somebody that you can, a veteran, for example. In our world, we're veterans, so and we know the struggle that a lot of veterans have, or first responders. If we can help them out, man, it's awesome. I love helping folks out.
Because we don't come from a place of money. You know what I mean? We're not, multi-millionaire entrepreneurs that can just ship money out of our ass,
Right.
So you build that network, it can be stronger than that,
It takes a tribe, man. It really does.
Yeah.
You can't do anything by yourself nowadays.
No.
It takes a whole tribe.
I don't think you ever could,
Yeah.
I think it from the start of the world, it always boils down to a group of people working together, and also taking over other countries and everything else like that that they want to do. But
whatever it might be, it took a whole tribe to do it.
Yeah, it did. But man, this has been awesome, and I really appreciate the opportunity you gave us here. Guys, y'all gonna have to come check out the shop 903 Tactical over here in New Diana. Is it New Diana or just Diana?
Either way, I've heard it both ways.
I've heard it both ways too, and it's always confusing.
The address says Diana.
Okay, we'll go with that. And but so what are some places that they can find y'all on, reach out to y'all?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a YouTube channel. I haven't put a lot of content on there recently because we've been really busy. However, we do have YouTube. It's 903 Tactical. We have Instagram. It's 903 TAC, so TAC. That's our Instagram. And then Facebook as well, 903 Tactical Arms Company.
And so just reach out, message y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can call us 903-916-2572. You can email us at 903tac@yahoo.com. That's all spelled out. No numbers involved in that. Or you can definitely shoot us a message on Instagram, Facebook, make a comment, subscribe, whatever, like to whatever our channel is, and we generally are pretty good about getting back to people.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, George. I really appreciate you coming on, man. It's been great. It's been one of my favorite podcasts yet.
Awesome.
It's just met you, literally just met you, and it just felt so genuine and it was fun.
Yeah.
Me and Blake was talking about it just a while ago when we stepped outside. It's been awesome, man.
That's cool.
But thank you guys for watching. Is there anything you have or want to say?
That's it, man. God bless you.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. Thank you for watching.